Well guys, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. You see, about 2 months ago I posted a short video called Any Questions where I invited you guys into a Q&A session. And now I'm going to answer them. I know it's been a while, but I promise it was worth the wait because you guys are not going to believe who I got to read the questions.
Hey everyone, I've been asked to be what's so commonly referred to here on YouTube as the questions bitch for LordClydeofOMAR's Q&A video. So I can think of no greater honor at this time, so let's get started.
Indeed, Nuke. Lay 'em on me.
Chupa Niubre asks, you have a button. If you press it, your enemy dies and you will get $10 million. You will not get in trouble for the murder, but people will know that you killed him. Do you press it?
Well, Chipa, I suppose this question really kind of boils down to whether or not there's anyone I would actually want to kill.
Because there's no such thing as a false flag.
Nah, wouldn't even really matter if I got in trouble for it or not, or even if everybody praised me for it, because I would always have to live with that fact that someone is dead by my hand, that I took somebody's baby. And I really don't think that there's anybody who's really worth having to live with that.
Hello? We called a stray guy.
10 million, huh?
Sardonic Skeptic asks, who would you least like to see in a sex tape?
I'd say Drinking with Bob. I mean, he would look like some kind of psychotic serial rapist just fucking a chick up the ass bent over screaming, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" Yeah, that'd be a bit much.
The user Skeptical Tuber asks, if you had to choose between living in a totalitarian world state or in a world of total anarchy, which would you choose? Well, I know what I'd choose.
Yeah, I think we all know what you'd choose, Nuke, but I wouldn't be so hasty. Notice how Skeptical Tuber didn't mention specifically what kind of totalitarian system we're talking about here. I mean, he could be talking about some twisted, global version of the Third Reich where the only people who aren't treated as being part of a problematic surplus of livestock are those who meet the qualifications for the Waffen-SS, and trust me, you and I would definitely not make the cut. They would neuter us like a couple of house pets and stick you in a French maid outfit, me in a butler's uniform, and put us both on contrary.
With contrary, one little blue pill gives all-day control. Side effects may include vomiting, shortness of breath, nausea, blurred vision, liver and kidney problems, constipation, and anal bleeding. Ask your veterinarian about contrary today.
This is why I would definitely go with Anarchy. I'm assuming that Anarchy in this context is basically meant to mean complete chaos. And of course we all know that it's a pretty consistent law of nature that out of chaos comes order. So the state of anarchy would and could only be a transitional period. A new order would eventually reassert itself, and unlike a totalitarian system, it would at least provide the opportunity for some of that change that everybody's looking for.
Sardonic Skeptic asks, if you could pick two people to fight to the death on camera, who would they be and what music would play in the background?
Alright, I thought about this one long and hard, and I decided that I would like to see George Galloway versus Noam Chomsky. I wouldn't even care who won, just as long as one of them's dead, that's all I really need. As for music,
Red Fist of Europe asks, would you DMCA Graham Tucker for DMCAing you?
of course not. Why would I sink to his level? My ship flies no flags, remember? DMCAs do the same thing.
Skeptical Tuber asks, World War II has occurred. Who is fighting, why, and who wins?
Alright, now, I tried as hard as I could to come up with at least a vaguely plausible scenario, and I got nothing. Every scenario that I came up with had to involve someone doing something incredibly stupid. Even if Iran did launch a missile at Tel Aviv and actually hit it, what do you think would happen next? The US Air Force would have their stealth laser-guided bunker busters all over Iran like semen on Ted Haggard. I suppose when we put boots on the ground there, they'd probably send the mujahideen from every Muslim nation across the fucking world, but that still wouldn't be anything like World War II. It would just be a considerably more intense version of the type of war we're fighting right now.
He also asks, would you rather convert to Islam and be a moderate, or convert to Christianity and be a creationist?
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, I guess it would depend on how moderate we're talking here, because I personally have yet to talk to a Muslim without having to drag disapproval of state-sanctioned Sharia law out of him kicking and screaming. Then again, Flavor Flav calls himself a Muslim. I guess I'll go with whatever sect he's a part of. Because I really like my brain cells. I'd really rather not have to beat myself over the head with this crowbar until I'm dumb enough to believe in creationism.
Tarsans403 asks, do you feel there is a need for atheists to defend themselves and attack others over religious arguments? I myself am an atheist, but I rarely ever get pulled into arguments, simply because to me atheism is represented by a lack of belief. Thus I try not to hold any belief because it seems irrelevant to my life. Yet most atheists I know hold very strong beliefs, and will get into deep-seated arguments with others because of them.
You see, the thing is, Christians have a lot of misconceptions and wrongful assumptions about atheists. A lot of them think that we don't believe just because we're mad at God for some traumatic experience in our lives, as if that makes any fucking sense. We are still the least trusted minority in the country because apparently a lot of Christians seem to think that the reason we don't believe in God is because we want to be able to eat babies without fear of having to go to hell. Now, I personally think that it is important to argue our perfectly valid points towards theists, if not for the sake of maybe clearing up some of this bullshit.
Phead80 asks a similar question to Tarzan's. And how should we deal with religious friends, relatives, and acquaintances, and strangers? It's kind of a question I'd like to ask all people I sub to. I run into this dilemma constantly.
Now, when it comes to friends, it's pretty simple. If you think that your friends would stop being your friends if you told them you were an atheist, then they were never your friends in the first place. Family, on the other hand, that tends to be a little bit more complicated. Now, it's not really a problem for me personally because my family really isn't even all that religious. They don't even talk about religion. Some of them do know that I'm an atheist and are just fine with that. But I know this isn't the case for everybody. And for those that do come from heavily religious families, I could see how that could be a problem, but I don't think I'm really the person to talk to about it. Though it seems to be a problem for a lot of atheists, so I wonder if the gays and lesbians could help us out with this one.
The Death of What You Love asks, how do you describe color to a blind man?
Well, I don't think that you could describe color to a blind man per se, but you could probably demonstrate it to him if you gave him enough LSD.
Cyborg Atheist asks, what is your background as far as religion is concerned? Were you born into a Christian family? Did you go to church? Stuff like that.
Well, I already mentioned that my family wasn't that religious, but it wasn't always that way. My background is all Catholic through and through, and not just any Catholic, we're talking old school. My dad was the son of Irish Catholic immigrants, and my mom went to Catholic school with backhand happy nuns. We used to go to church every Sunday, and I also went to this thing called CCD. Forget what it stands for specifically, but it's like this sort of after-school religious class. It's what you gotta go through to go to confirmation. I would usually just space out and daydream in church and in CCD. All of that changed, however, when all that information started coming out about priests being kitty fiddlers, and shortly after that, I was actually kicked out of CCD, for reasons which I will not go into here. It is just too illegal. Wasn't related to the scandal, though, just to be clear.
Back to our old favorite, sardonic skeptic. Should they bring To Catch a Predator back?
You know, I think a better question would be, why the fuck did they take that shit off the air in the first place?
You want to explain to me what you're doing here?
I ain't come looking for no little boys. I came looking for man's butt.
A man's butt? Excuse me?
Now, I tell you what. I like you, and I want you. Now, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way.
Well, I don't think you and I will be doing anything any kind of way.
Okay, I see you choosing the hard way. And you ruin that butt, no, Chris. I'm a warrior.
Well, I could see Hanson wanting to quit the show after an experience like that, but fuck it. Get a new host. Put that shit back on the air. What do you think, Nuke? Then it's settled.
Mr. Enrique 223 asks, I know you, like myself, are a firm supporter of the Second Amendment, and like me, Nuclearnight. What is your favorite type of gun and favorite model of gun?
You know, it seems like a lot of people, when asked this question, respond with
AK-47, AK-47.
Now, I would never dream of doubting the destructive capabilities of a Kalashnikov, but the problem is there's just nothing subtle about the thing. And subtlety is important to me, but so is power. This is why I am a big fan of heavy-duty revolvers, specifically this baby right here. The Smith & Wesson Model 629-44 Magnum. One of the few things that this thing has in common with the AK-47 is that it too can shatter a cinder block. Unlike the AK-47, however, it is still small enough to fit under a coat. Now, in terms of handguns, my good friend Peacemaker SS-22 deeply favors the Colt M1911. Now, while I will admit that there are crucial advantages to a semi-automatic design, such as higher rate of fire, it's less cumbersome, and longer magazine, the revolver is not without a few perks of its own. For one, a longer barrel means a longer range, and second, and most importantly, revolvers do not eject their spent shell casings. Now, if you're actually in a situation where you actually have to kill someone and run, the last thing you want to do is leave behind your spent shell casings. The cops can totally pull your fingerprints off those things.
Alliance of Demons asks, what are your thoughts on people like Shock of God?
The word I would use to describe Shock of God would probably be relic. Now, the reason I choose that word is because back in the early days of YouTube atheism, when atheism was first being discussed on YouTube, practically every fucking Christian with a webcam thought he could score some easy Jesus points by making the lost found, so to speak. As time went on, however, the number of bold-ass Christians began to decrease. And now there are only just a few holdouts left, and Shock of God is one of them.
My dear friend Sayal Polani asks, if you could have one YouTube superpower, what would it be?
The ability to resurrect terminated accounts. Looks like Coughlin could use that right now.
Sardonic Skeptic asks, would you rather have dinner with the head dragon of the KKK or a member of NAMBLA, and why?
Grand Dragon. I want to tease him with the salt and pepper shakers.
Rank and File Guy asks 2 questions. 1. Who have you always wanted to be? Like a dream thing you always wanted to do in your life.
In case it isn't too obvious, I kind of wanted to be a heavy metal star, but have you ever tried starting a metal band? Not easy.
And 2. Who do you want to be in the future, realistically?
Well, I'm a biochemistry major in college right now, so I would imagine something in that field, just not quite sure what specifically.
Sayal Polani asks you the most important question of all. When I move back to Boston, would you go out on a date with me? This is totally shameless, I know, but you're handsome and more importantly, very smart. Looks like Diana wants to sleep with the enemy.
Sure, I'm adventurous and open-minded, but you gotta buy me a drink, though. I'm sure I can find a place around here that serves absinthe. Anyway, that about wraps it up. If I didn't get to your question this time, I'll get it next time. I would like to thank Nuclearnight for making this the most epic answers video ever.
It's been great.
And I would also like to inform all of you that yours truly is going to be appearing at DevShell 2's charity event on blogtv August 29th, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be appearing as a musical guest. Links below. Omar, over and out.
Sonic lips, the stain, the desert.